Thanks, Tony. I'm continuing our little series of information about our school, and as an introduction, my name is David Mall. I'm the treasurer for the school, and you'll see some finance numbers today. Michelle Cloutier and I have been asked to actually lead some fundraising, and what I feel a lot of that involves is communication, letting people know what's going on, what the needs are, and what our plan is. And of course, this is, as Tony mentioned, this is moving toward this August 28 church business meeting. It's a Friday evening at 6:30, and we hope everybody will be there, and we will be making a decision about moving forward with this project or not. So that's very important, and today, this is part 4 of a 5-part series, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the projected building cost and available funds. A little bit of recap. Part 2, several Sabbaths ago we talked about the history of our school. This was the first Tri-City Seventh-day Adventist School, and in the Midland Daily News newspaper there was an article when this school opened, and it said that the construction was started in June, and it was ready for school classes to begin in September, which seems sort of amazing by today's standards for construction. Tony and I have joked about that. The newspaper article, and typical articles of the day, said there were 90 men volunteers at that time, who from the Bay City, Saginaw, and Midland churches that built that building in just about 3 months. And it also mentioned that the women of the churches supplied food. So obviously a big team effort, a big church family effort. Last Sabbath we talked a little bit about the building design, and I'm not going to go over that today, but other than just to remind you, if you drive in our parking lot and you look at our church, it doesn't look like this. It looks like there's just two sections, and this section on the front would be new. And so that would be the addition that we're talking about. And we talked about plans for that, be a 1 classroom, and have support facilities, restrooms, and storage, and utilities, and all that. So if you'd like, there are copies of those key slides in the foyer if you missed that presentation. Also, these presentations are on our YouTube church live stream page, just as little mini presentations if you'd like to go back. If you missed one, I'd like to hear it. But today we're talking about some of the financial factors. I just want to comment, we don't always talk about finances in detail during church services. And some people would say, well, why are you doing that? I would argue, we have talked about it as well, we're arguing that this is ministry, this is offerings. We're talking about future ministry of our school. And although we're not going to work on details and vote and all sorts of things in the meeting, we are going to communicate some of the financial details so that people can pray about this project and plan on their personal finances, what they think they can do. So two big questions today. Question number 1, how much will it cost? And the answer is we don't know. But we have some estimates. We've actually started talking to architects about 6 years ago, and so we've gone through several phases on this, but this is the current proposal, what was described in the last Sabbath. We have 2 estimates. The architect firm that did the design work for us, preliminary design work, says this will cost $821,000. The Great Lakes Bay Construction, a fairly reputable local contractor, said it would cost $608,000. And which do you believe? We don't know. Architects they want to overestimate so they don't surprise their customers. And this particular building area, this type of construction typically done by union contractors if it's state-oriented work. So lots of reasons to me possibly say that's an overestimate. On the other hand, with Great Lakes Bay Construction is a contract that's a very preliminary estimate, although they did include a fair amount of detail, what they considered in their estimate. And but they want to get the job, so they're going to probably give us a low price to start with as an estimate, and as we move along, they'll probably raise it. So we don't know which is the right number, and Tony and I talked about this, several of us talked about this. We said, well, knowing what we know, for planning purposes, let's go with the $750,000. Halfway between those 2 numbers, And remember, there's an error bar about plus or minus $100,000. It could be $600,000, it could be $800,000, all right? We don't know. Could be even more, could be even less. So that's a target number, and I want to comment that we tried to equalize both of these so that they included the same kinds of things. There is a 10% contingency, there's $20,000 for furniture and fixtures and equipment inside the classroom, $63,000 for construction documents and project oversight by the architect. So both estimates were adjusted to be sort of the same, best we could. So that's the answer to question number 1. Put that in your mind, $750,000. Question number 2, how much money do we have today? Two simple questions. This one's a little harder to answer. There's sort of 2 categories of money. One, I've called funds designated for the project. These are monies that were donated for that, or in the case of when we sold the previous school over in the Saginaw area, that money went to the conference, Michigan Conference, and they have allocated it to us, provided we use it for a new school building. So it has to be capital. If we decide, no, we're not going to build a school, I hope we don't decide, but if we decided that money would revert back to the conference. They would hold it for another church in the area. Maybe if Edenville wanted to add to their school, they could use that money. So this is reserved for Adventist education building capital. Right now it's in our hands. If we go forward with the project, that's our money. That's the $207,000. We have the school offerings bought the Carroll Creek House. We talked a little bit, Carroll Courthouse that is now our ACS center. The previous center is up for sale, and since the original cost of $120,000 was paid for out of donated money for the new school building, we were originally planning that might be the school. That would be allocated to the school as well. If we sell it for more than that, the rest of that money would be discretionary at what we use that for. But at least $120,000 would be allocated to this project. And we have an ongoing fund that people are still donating to, praise the Lord, $14,800, that is also designated for the new building project. So that total is $342,000. There's another category which we can't ignore. That would be funds available for the new building project. So these aren't voted to be used this way, but they're funds that could be used this way. Just a reminder, in the Adventist Church, we have a long-standing tradition and policy. If you give money for a certain project, it goes to that project. If you give money to, let's come up with an idea. If you give money to community services, all right? Church board can't take that money and say, oh, we want to use it for this new school building project. You would have to go back to the donors and say, is it okay if we use that for something different than what you donated for? But these are funds that have been donated that are unrestricted and could be used for the school. So there is a school unallocated fund on the school side. The school has its own bank account and finances, so it has $7,000 in an account right now that is unallocated, and the school has a reserve fund it's been building slowly for emergencies. We have $14,600 in that fund, which we could call this opportunity for a school something we would use a reserve for. On the church side, we have several unallocated funds. Some of these came from estate gifts or whatever, but they're sitting on our books now. I have to give a thanks to Linda Andrews for helping me with this week. $8,600, $10,900, and $5,000. And we also have church improvement capital, which this would be in addition to the church, so that could be used for this project. That total is $54,500. So just a word about this. It's easy to see this money and say, it sort of burns a hole in our pocket, we want to use it for some cool project. Give an example, if you're getting ready, you're a young married couple and you're getting ready to buy a house. Save like crazy, get enough money for that down payment. Probably not a good time to buy a car. Probably not a good time to be going out to eat every other night. You need that money for this big project that's going to change your family. So we don't say we stop ministry in our church, but discretionary things like maybe donating to the organ or to a cosmetic improvement, those are probably things we might want to put on hold. This is a decision, but if we go with this project, we need every dollar we can get, because every dollar that comes from this, someone doesn't have to donate. All right? Just a word to the wise and to our church board, who has responsibility for using these funds. So that's $54,000. If we put those two together and we take the building cost, I ask you to remember the $715,000. We subtract off the designated funds, which are allocated to the school, and ones that could be allocated to the school if we went all out. That leaves $318,000 to raise. So is that a big number? Pretty big for a church this size. Just some final comments about that. How big is it? It's about 1.5 times our tithe. Our tithe system, Adventists generally give about 10% of their income, and our church members are very faithful, and we give a little over $200,000 a year for tithe. That is not used for local operations, things that would support pastors primarily, pastors' salaries throughout the Michigan Conference and throughout the world. So that amount is about 1.5 times our current tithe. If you look, typical church building projects where a church is a high priority, you're going to build a project, you got to have a church to hold services in, which is high priority. It's not unusual to have projects, loans that are 2 to 2.5 times tithe. So this is a relatively modest amount for a fundraising program for a church, even though it's a big number. I did some checking with the Michigan Conference this week. We would basically instantly qualify for a loan at this point. That 1.5 is way below the 4x limit for loans. So we could walk in today and get a loan for the whole project. For that remaining, $318,000, we get a loan instantly for that, for up to 20 years. Not saying we go do that because we have to pay that loan back, but we would qualify for that loan today. We could, with no fundraising, we could build this project. We just have to pay later. Current interest rates are 5% from the church, which is pretty attractive, and you can choose the length of the loan. So we have some options. The next 2 weeks from now, it will be part 5 of this. We'll talk a little bit about fundraising, how we might approach that. But that's for later. I just wanted to give you a heads up on what the finances of this project are best as we know today. So I've heard people say, well, we sold the school, it shouldn't cost us anything. Well, that's not, I want to erase that thought from your mind. We do have to raise money for this project. Okay, so remind you, showed this slide previously, the overall plan here, just to keep things focused. We really need a dedicated classroom for our school. We're using the fellowship hall, part of that now. If you ask Brenda, we need something that's more permanent in terms of the setup of the room. We'd love to have it attached to the church, but it be able to be separated from the church so the kids don't, so they're limited access just to the classroom area. And it would be designed as a classroom, where the windows are, where the teacher's desk is, the AV equipment, all those things would be designed actually as a classroom. We're getting by, but it could be much better. The other thing we need to keep in mind is we're talking about restoring the use of our activity center. So right now, half the activity center is used by the school, which is a good thing. We want to do that, but long term, that limits what we can do in the activity center. So evangelistic meetings in particular, fellowship meals, social events, all those things are limited because of only half the room is available at this point. So this project is looking at two big parts of our church, our school and our ability to use our activity center. And last, I just want to say thanks to God for our school. We talked about the history and how God has led in a previous time, but it's a fantastic blessing for our church to have a school, to have Brenda and the other helpers there. It's a fantastic ministry. And just a final plea, please put on your calendar this August 28th business meeting. So, thanks very much.